I was 20, living alone on a ground floor of an apartment building. My living room window faced a small parking lot for the building, which wasn't gated. I'd stay up late, watching TV or playing games almost every night. It was winter when I first moved in, so I'd have the blinds down at night to help keep the cold air out. Summer came and there was no AC in the apartment, so I'd open the windows and blinds at night for cool air. One night I'm lying on the couch watching TV when I get the feeling that I'm being watched. I looked over at the window, and a man had his hands and face pressed against the screen, merely 3 feet from where I was lying, just watching me. I let out a blood-curdling scream and he did not even blink. Terrified, I jumped up, grabbed the phone, and screamed that I was calling the cops. He still just stood there completely motionless and dead-eyed. At that point I yelled that I'm getting the neighbor, started walking to the door, when he finally took off. I locked the window and stayed up all night, completely on edge. My boyfriend at the time came over and stayed for a full week. He made sure to leave the blinds open and sat at the edge of the couch closest to the window to make it known I wasn't always alone. The creeper didn't show up again, so eventually I got comfortable thinking it was an isolated incident of some random wandering around the parking lot. Maybe another 3 weeks after that, I get home late from waiting tables and park in the lot. I get changed, grab a snack, and head to the living room to play games. I start to raise the blinds to open the windows and let in cool air, and the creeper standing right there with his face pressed against the screen once again. He was not standing in the parking lot when I pulled in, as I parked right by my window. I can only assume he was waiting around the corner of the building, watching me come home and timing my movements. This time I grabbed the phone and immediately called the police. I was shaking, crying, completely hysterical. The creeper takes off. The cops come and say they'll have someone patrol the block when they can. My boyfriend immediately comes over. He wants to stay with me until I can get out of there, so I start looking at different apartments. Another 3 to 4 weeks or so later, I have an apartment lined up on a high floor in a doorman building, because at this point, screw it. My boyfriend had to get out of town for a few days, so I decided to go stay at my friend's place, because I certainly wasn't going to be there all by myself. I'm at my friend's place for 2 nights, but wanted to run home and grab a few things I'd forgotten. She goes with me, for obvious reasons, and we go in the afternoon, not at dark. We decide to hang out for a bit and play games together, because it's daylight and there is activity around the building. No AC, so I hesitantly raise the blinds to get fresh air. I'm terrified opening them, then laugh to myself because I do it, and of course, no one is there. I open the actual window and see 2 large holes cut into the screen, right above the latches you push in to lift. They were definitely not there 2 days ago. My blood ran entirely cold. The creeper knew my boyfriend was gone. He was watching and saw his car was gone. I'd left my car there as my friend picked me up, and we always left a light on in the living room to make the creeper think we were awake. So he saw my car, thought I was home, saw the light on, yet proceeded to cut holes in the screen to break in at a later date or time. I have no idea if he actually gained access, but seeing how bold he was terrified me. How long had he been watching me, learning my patterns, and getting gradually more aggressive with every interaction? I still sometimes get a chill when I raise my blinds, and it took a long time to get comfortable living in anything but a high-rise. Thanks for the lifelong PTSD. Let's not meet again. One night when I was 12 or 13, my parents were gone for a while, and I was just staying up really late on my desktop computer waiting for them to come home. Like most people, I had been told a million times not to talk to strangers on the internet, but about half of my friends list on MSN were people I had never met before, so I was just chatting with a bunch of them. Out of nowhere, one of my online friends had told me exactly what I had been doing the past hour or two. Ergo, what I was eating, drinking, playing with when I had gotten up last, things I didn't mention in the chat. I instantly got a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. My desktop was set up in front of a big window, so as far as I knew, this person I had been talking to, that was supposed to live in a different country than me, had found my address and been watching me through the window. Turns out he had somehow hacked into my webcam and had been frequently watching me through it whenever he wanted. It's been 10 years and I still have all the cameras on my devices covered in duct tape. I was about 8, and I was taking the trash outside after the sun went down when a hand reached from the side of our back deck and grabbed my leg, trying to yank me. I screamed very loud, and whoever it was left, and I ran inside. I was a kid around 10 years old, and I was babysitting my 7-year-old sister. We grew up near an insane asylum, and every now and then we'd get an escapee in our yard. They'd walk off the grounds and head through the woods toward the nearest town. They'd get about a mile to our place and realize walking 40 miles to that town was not happening, so they would ask to use the phone to call and get picked up by the hospital. This happened every now and then, but this was the first time it happened when I was home without my parents. The woman who arrived in our driveway wanted me to call the hospital to pick her up, but she also asked me if I had some matches, presumably to light a cigarette. I ushered my sister into the house and locked the door as I called. The woman was kind of half screaming, half moaning. "Matches! I need matches!" until they came and picked her up. I'm sure it was just for a cigarette, but it also could have been to burn us alive, so I didn't give her any. I had just moved into my very first apartment. It was around 8:30 p.m., and I heard the doorknob moving like someone was putting a key in it and turning and knocking. At first I got really excited that my then boyfriend was home, but then I realized it was only 8:30 and he wasn't due home from work until 10:30. I looked out the kitchen window, or anyone's car I had known parked outside. That's when I panicked. The doorknob kept moving for a few more seconds, and then stopped. A few minutes later, they had some piece of metal they were sticking between the door, trying to open it. I freaked out at that point, and locked myself in the bathroom with a knife, and dialed 911. They tried to pry the door open for 3 minutes before they suddenly stopped. The police surveyed the area and found an elderly man roaming around with a knife and crowbar. He used to live in that apartment, and he wanted his stuff back that we stole when we moved in. I was told he was very delusional. I'm so thankful and glad I didn't answer the door once I realized it was no one I knew. To this day, my heart stops when someone knocks on my door. So this took place in my backyard when I was a kid. My mom had made a tree swing by putting a large log across 2 trees that were split at the top in Y shapes. A rope hung down from the middle of the log, and there was a little wooden slab to sit and swing on. I was out there swinging away when suddenly, before I knew what had happened, I was pulled backward and found myself laying in the dirt. I looked up just in time to watch the log that was holding the swing split and crash down. I had used this swing a billion times, and where I landed wasn't even reachable at maximum swinging capacity. I looked up and no one was around. The feeling of being pulled back is permanently logged into my brain. My bedroom is on the second story. I woke up one night around 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. I knew we were expecting a lot of snow. I looked out the bedroom window to see the accumulation. It was deep, higher than the curb, like a white blanket across the cul-de-sac. I decided to get some water, so I walked downstairs, turned on the light, went to the bathroom and got water. I was downstairs for maybe 4 minutes. I went back to my bedroom. All the lights were out again, and I looked at the snow one more time. Within those 4 minutes, there were now fresh footsteps leading from my house across the cul-de-sac and disappearing behind my neighbor's house. I lived out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woods, corn, and wheat fields. I was home alone one night and decided to step out on the porch for a smoke. I'm about halfway done. I take another drag, and when I blow out the smoke, it rolls around a face about a foot away from me. Needless to say, I tossed the cigarette and noped back inside and locked the doors. When I was about 13, I spent the night over at my cousin's house. We were home alone for the night and stayed up late playing video games. I remember he left the room to use the restroom. I must have been playing something good, because I was sitting on the edge of the bed up close to the TV. As I played by myself, I felt my cousins come back in the room from behind me, and he laid back down on the bed. It gave me a little bounce as if he jumped on. The bed squeaked. When I turned back to talk to him, he wasn't there. He was still in the restroom. I looked down on the bed where I thought I had felt him, and there was an imprint on the bed coming back up, like if someone had been there and was just coming off of it. A couple years ago, I was home alone. My husband was traveling out of state. I put on the news on the Samsung Smart TV in the living room, set the remote on the coffee table, and I went into the kitchen next room over to make dinner. After a few minutes, I noticed I didn't hear the sound of news anymore, and I thought maybe the signal went out or the TV timed out and shut itself off. I come back into the living room and the TV screen is showing a picture of a couch in a living room, my living room. It takes me a minute to realize the camera in my TV has been activated, and it's showing a live video of the room. The remotes were still on the table, so no chance the dog accidentally stepped on them and pushed buttons or anything. A few days later, news broke that Samsung Smart TVs had a hacking issue. Guess the real mystery is how often I was spied on before I put tape over the camera. It was January in Minnesota. There was about a foot of snow on the ground, and my parents were out at a bar, and my brother was at a friend's house but would come back later. I was in my living room watching TV, and I heard a small knocking coming from the basement. I walked down to investigate all over the basement and found nothing. Not thinking much of it, I walked back upstairs to the living room to continue watching. About 5 minutes later, I hear a loud crash from the basement and what sounded like a door opening. At this point, I was very worried. I started to make my way down the stairs terrified, and as I went down, I thought maybe my brother was home without me, knowing, so I called his name. Nothing. I called again, and nothing, so I kept slowly moving down the stairs, only to find that there were drawers open and desks, box open, and a few plastic bins and containers all knocked down and tipped over. But the worst of all, my back glass door wide open with footprints leading out the door. I shut it, called my parents, and when they came, my mom called the police while my dad followed them. According to him, they went over my fence into the road behind my house where they stopped. My guess is he was picked up, but we and the police never found out if it was planned or just a random house they picked to rob. absolutely terrifying. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the very end. I hope you enjoyed this video enough to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Please make sure you hit the thumbs up and turn the notifications on for future videos. And remember, I always upload on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays every week without fail. If you want your story featured on an upcoming video, send it to my email in the description box below. Until we meet again, stay sinful.